Okay, I have 3:30, so we may have some other people try to join, but I'm going to go ahead and get started because I know I want to be mindful of everyone's time. This is meant to be a Q&A session for Banner students. So the student module is what we're going to be focusing on today. So if you have any questions about any other modules, I may or may not be able to help you, but I will certainly make note of those and see if I can get an answer for you. So with that in mind, I am going to just go over just a couple of things real quickly, and then I'm just going to open it up to questions. So if you have a question, just you should be able to unmute yourself and just give me a shout out, or you can type it in the chat, or you can, I believe, use the raise your hand function. So we'll just, any way you can think of, just let me know that you have a question. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Trying to share my screen. Okay, let's do this. Try it again. There we go. Okay, can everyone see the what we call the green screen from Banner? So if you hear people talk about the green screen, this is what they're talking about. So this is where you can go to actually sign in to Banner. And this is where you can also go to get to other instances. So sometimes if we're in the process of doing an upgrade or changing a process, we may want to do some testing, and you may hear people talk about, are you in prod or are you in daily, or what instance of Banner are you in? And this is what they're talking about. So most of the time you're going to use this top one, which is prod, which is production, which is the live version, but just be aware that there are these other out here in case you did want to do any testing. And one that I use a lot is daily. And this can be.
I don't see your screen share.
I'm sorry?
I don't see a screen share. It says you're starting to share it.
I don't either.
Not showing anything.
Oh, okay.
I don't see it either. It's just a black screen. It says Angel Nelson. It has started screen sharing.
Okay, let me try again.
There you go.
Do you see it now? Okay, thank you. Thank you for letting me know. So that this is what the green screen is, and so daily is one that you can use often because it is going to have the data as of the end of the day yesterday. So for me, if I'm working on something and I think like, oh, I might have messed that up, you can go here to see what everything looked like yesterday and kind of get back to where you were before. So a couple of other things before I actually sign in, there are some references here, right here. You'll see some FAQs, and there's even a quick reference guide from Banner. And then there's even a video here that you can use, you know, if you wanted a quick tour of Banner 9. So those, that functionality is there for you also. So I'm going to go ahead and log into production. the thing with Banner is every single user is going to have different permissions and a different security profile. So what my screen looks like when it comes up here, yours may look completely different. And it'll be different than other people who work in your area. So just keep that in mind. It's all determined by your permissions and the security features that you have set up. So once you're into Banner, you're going to see a screen like that looks similar to this. And there's a few ways you can get around in here. Is everyone familiar with My Banner, where you can save your favorites? If you weren't aware of that, you can go to click on this applications. And if you go to My Banner, then it has a list of favorite screens here that I use a lot. And so if there's, you know, a certain screen that maybe you only use every now and then and it's hard to remember that name, you can go ahead and save it here in your favorites. Not required at all, but just keep in mind that that is there for you. Personally, I tend to just type the screen names in because I find it takes me longer to search through that favorites list to find them. And so that's what this box is for. One improvement that happened with Banner 9 is that you can actually search, you can put in the actual screen. So if I wanted to, a screen that we use a lot in the registrar's office is called Spaden, and that's going to have student information. So you can see that I just typed Spaden in the box, but if I couldn't remember that name, you can also just search, I could type in student, and then it's going to start bringing up all these lists of screens that have student in the description. So you can also search that way if you don't know the actual name of the Banner screen, which is nice. Okay. With that being said, just a couple other things which many of you probably know, but in Banner, when you're making updates, of course, you're always going to have where you can use your mouse to click on, for example, Go, but you can also use F10 in place of Go to save. And then wanted to show you, if you are searching for a student, a lot of people are not aware that you can use a % sign as a wildcard in here. So if you wanted to look up, you know, Angel Nelson, but you didn't know if it was Angel or Angela, you could just put the A%, and then you can hit F8 to search, and then it's going to bring up every person with the last name and then the first name that starts with an A. So the % can be used anytime you're searching. You can pop that % in, and it acts as a wildcard. So that's just some very basic getting around in Banner information. As I said earlier, this is meant to be a Q&A, so let's just go ahead and get some questions. Does anybody have one?
I have a question.
Great.
I've been granted access to just a couple of programs and things like that. And what do I need to do if I go into the favorite to star it and it won't star it, so that I can just put, when I go in, that I could just pull up instead of having to do the search button to search for it each time?
Okay, so you've gone to, you're trying to set up My Banner, like your favorites. If you go here to this favorite button and then you click Organize My Banner and then click Go, this is where you can add or remove screens. Does this look familiar? Okay, so this is where you would go to add or remove anything from that list.
Okay.
So when you go here, the one on the right, this is the ones that are in My Favorites. So
Okay.
you find the one you're looking for over here, and then you know, if I wanted to add that, most of these, I don't know what they are, but if I wanted to add this, I double click it and then put insert. I don't have the access to this screen, so that's why I'm getting that error. But that's how you would do it, and then save down here. So if there's a screen, if you're having trouble with that, maybe give me a call separately and we can get on a Zoom and I can help you with it. But first thing we'd want to do is make sure that you definitely did have access to that particular screen.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Did anyone else have a question?
Hey, Angel, can you walk us through SGA ADVR, the
Sure.
advisor assignment screen?
Sure. So SGAADVR is the advisor screen for a student. I'm just using myself on all of these screens. Sorry about that. So you put in the student's ID number and a term, and then this is where you can add the advisor. And if you know the advisor's ID number, you could type that in there. If not, you click on the 3 dots, and then this is going to take you to a search screen. The thing with the advisor is you have to put in advisor type. It will not save if you don't have at least one has to be like the first major. And so you have to get one of those saved, and then you have to have one primary. And then after that, you can add as many as you want. So some students have 2 or 3 majors and minors. You know, you can have as many advisors as you want. You just have to have one major primary advisor before you can save. The other issue with that is that it has to be in your college. When you are assigned, when your security is set up in Banner, you're assigned to the actual screens that you have access to, but you're also assigned to a profile, which is basically your college. So if you're in the College of Nursing, it's not going to let you assign an advisor to a student whose major is, you know, outside of your college, probably. So that's one thing that you have to be aware of. And that causes problems a lot when employees move. So keep that in mind. Just if you're in AA in one college and you move to another college, you may think, I don't need to do anything with my access, but there is some tweaking that would need to be done. Otherwise, you'll have a headache. You won't be able to do anything in the new college. Another screen that comes up a lot where we get questions about is holds, and that screen is called SOA hold. And I have a hold that says major hold must see advisor. And here you can see the date it was put on and when it will fall off, and then who created the hold. So if you wanted to remove this hold, it's just a matter of highlighting the row and clicking delete. You can also just bump the hold out. So you could just change this date to like later in February if you didn't want to remove it. You know, you wanted the hold to stay out there. The only thing I will caution you on is if it's a batch type hold, which is a hold that my office puts on all at once. And so those examples of those are going to be your major hold, your freshman hold, a GPA hold for if their GPA is less than 2.0. If you alter this hold in any way, then my batch processes aren't going to work anymore. So for example, last semester when COVID hit and we went online and we were removing tons of holds all at once, anybody who had altered one of these holds, when I went in and tried to remove them, that won't work. May or may not be an issue, so just keep that in mind. Unless you really, really need that hold to come back on at a later time, I strongly suggest that you just remove it, because again, it will, what will happen is if later on I get a notice from, saying, hey, please take off all the major holds, then that one particular student, their hold's going to remain. So the other thing is there's a box here called release indicator, and you don't want to check that. If that box is checked, it means only the one person who put the hold on can take it off. And so if you're not in, or you're out of the office, or, even in the registrar's office, which I have access to take off most every hold, if that box is checked, I can't do it. Only that person can. And so that causes problems sometimes too. You want to avoid that. Now, the only hold where you will always see that is the bursar. So bursar always checks that box, and they're the only ones that can remove their holds. But otherwise, you want to avoid that if at all possible. Any other questions?
Angel, I don't know if you have an easy way to show an example, but from an IT perspective, a lot of times when someone calls in and they're trying to get help, they may say that they're a student or that they're registered.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes
that's not a true statement.
Okay.
Or, sometimes they've been accepted by a department, but maybe they're accepting, there's just reasons that sometimes it doesn't, things don't flow through the system right. I personally know which screens I go to look at, to check that. Sometimes I still may have to call your office just to verify if I don't see, I think I should, but I wondered if that'd be useful for someone else.
Sure. So there's a few different screens, and Teresa, I'll tell you what I do, and then you tell me what you do, and we'll see if we're on the same page. But that does happen a lot. If someone tells me they're a student, the first screen that I'm going to go to is called Sagastian. That's what we call it in my office, which is just the general student record. And this in the registrar's office, like, we live by this screen, but this is going to tell me a lot of information about the student. And what I would be looking for is to see if I have a current term here. Now, if the student hasn't been here in a while, this would be really old. Or if they're not accepted at all, if you try to go to this screen, Sagastian, and some of you might use this, but it would be SGA-STDQ. It's the same thing. That's just a query only view where I have update view. If they're not a student at all, sometimes you'll go to Sagastian and you'll get a message that just says not a student. And so that lets you know that there's an issue. So the way it works is when a student goes and fills out an application online, that information is fed into a screen called SODMS. And this is the admissions screen. And this is where their admissions information comes in. But one thing that I would do if Sagastian didn't look right, or if I got a message that said they're not a student, then I would go here to admissions, and then I would see, have they actually been accepted? And so here you're going to see accepted conditional, which doesn't mean anything bad. A lot of times that means, we're accepted on the condition that we get all your transcripts, or that you graduate, or, it just means there might be something outstanding. But you want to look to see accepted, good standing, accepted conditional, anything like that. If you see denied or withheld, which a lot of times that means that maybe the student applied and then they said, like, oh wait, I changed my mind, I want to do a different term. You can have different situations like that. But if you see anything other than accepted, then they are not a student. And then another screen that I personally would look at too is going to be a screen called Shaw Course, well, I'll show you Shaw Course first, and that's going to be, you don't have to put in a term. Oh, sorry about that. But anyway, this is going to show me all of if they had any courses, if they had taken any courses at USI. I don't know how to get that off. Sorry. There we go. So I would look at Shaw Course or Safar IST. is their registration history. And this screen is going to show me every course that they've taken in the past, and if they had future registration, it would show me that too. So those are a few places that you can go. But you are right, Teresa, that happens a lot where once they apply, they'll tell you they're a student, and that's not always the case.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any other questions?
Hey, Angel, this is Tori. I've got a question. I ran into this just recently with some of our DOC students, that they go to register and then they need a level override.
Okay. So a level override is going to be, it depends on when you create a course, when the college creates a course, you can set up a prereq, which a prereq is a course, meaning you have to take course X before course Y. But you could also create a restriction, and a restriction could be, and I'll bring up, Tori, could you give me a course for example?
Let's do, let's see here, 707, EDLE 707, yeah.
Okay. So this is going to be the course restriction screen that I'm going to show you, and this will show us the restrictions on the course. And a restriction could be by department, field of study, which would be a major or a concentration or a minor. It could be a class, which is freshman, sophomore, junior, senior. It could be level, which is UG or GR. And then you can also do degree and program. So I'm not sure why they would be getting a level restriction, Tori.
I don't know either. It was some of our new students, their first year in the doctoral program.
Okay, so I have a theory, but if you could give me, maybe separately, we'll give me an example and we'll look at that. But one thing that I wanted to mention, and this happens all the time with students, every single graduate level course that we create is going to have a level saying exclude undergraduate students. And what can happen sometimes is I'm a student and I just graduate. I am finishing my undergrad degree this semester, and I've already been, pre-accepted as a graduate student next semester. When I'm accepted, I have that. We talked about that suggestion record. For a short time, I'm going to have an undergraduate and a graduate because I'm kind of both until I finish the UG and we award that one. It's still out there. Does that make sense? Well, the way Banner works is if we have this level restriction, even if I have a graduate record out there, it still sees the undergraduate and it's like, no, you're an undergraduate, and it's going to block them. So sometimes it's a matter of timing. Like if the undergrad degree isn't awarded yet, Banner still sees that, and it won't count them 100% as graduate yet. But that's just a theory. If you can give me a specific student, we'll check into that and find out for sure. And I will tell you, for those of you that are creating classes, I am still fairly new to this. And so I'm very literal. So sometimes we don't match our terminology. So, you might, if you tell me you want a program override, that's where I have the entire program, like right here, the GR and the EDD and the major EDLE. So that's how I will put it. We could only you could put a restriction that was only the degree, which would be the EDD. But I'm just mentioning that because, like I said, I'm still kind of figuring this out. So sometimes if you might say one thing and that means something different to me. So if that happens, you can always just give me a call and we can tweak those things.
Perfect. And I just sent you an email with an example of one.
Okay, wonderful. Does anyone else have any questions? One thing to keep in mind that I wanted to mention, and this isn't in Banner so much, is just I always like to reiterate that that, you know, Banner does not communicate in any way with Blackboard. So that's always important to keep in mind. So sometimes that's one big question we get, you know, especially when it comes to grading time. This is all in Blackboard. Why do I have to enter it here? And, you know, they don't talk to each other at all. So even though you might have courses graded on Blackboard, you'll still have to go and enter them, you know, into MyUSI so that they feed into Banner. One other screen that I was going to show, and since Tori had brought up needing an override, that screen is called SFASRPO. You gotta love these names, but that's what we call it. Again, just pulling myself up, but this is where you would enter the override. So as Tori mentioned, if the student needed a level override, you can click on the 3 dots and it will give you every possible override that you could enter, and you want to select level. And then you can either enter the CRN or put in the subject and course number. And how you do that depends on the situation. If you put in a CRN, that is the only CRN it's going to work for. So if the student later decided, like, I want the online section instead of the off-campus one, it's not going to work. They're going to get the error again, and you're going to have to start all over. So if it doesn't matter, I feel like it's better to be more generic and put the subject and the course number. Now, having said that, there will be some times where you want them to only go with that CRN. And one example that comes to mind is in the LLCs, if you're familiar with that, the living learning communities. Those students are only supposed to take one section. And so if you were giving them an override, you would want to put that CRN because you wouldn't want them to be able to get into any other section except that specific one. So you can do it either way, just kind of think about that. If the student decided to change the meeting time, do you want them to get the error again and have to call you and go through all those steps? And then one other screen. Does anyone else have any questions? One other screen that I was going to show is SAWSECT, and this is the course many of you would be familiar with, where you are creating sections for when you're setting up all of your sections, creating your schedule. So that's what this screen looks like. And oh, it's not going to let me do anything there. The thing that I wanted to point out with this is, and I'm not sure how, a lot of times we get questions where it's a little ways into the semester and someone will have created a section and they want to make a change. And I just wanted to point out that once a student is enrolled, you cannot make any changes to this. So the only way to change anything is to drop every student from the class. Then you could go back in and make the changes that we needed here, and then you would have to re-enroll every single student. So just kind of keep that in mind, that this is one of the screens where once a student registers, then nothing can really be changed.
Angel, is there like a master cheat sheet list of what the codes are and what it actually does? Like SAWSECT, equals schedule creation screen.
There's not an official one like from Ellucian, but I do have one that I've created here for our new employees, that when we hire someone new, that I give that to them. And I'm happy to share it with you if you would like.
I would love that.
So just my only qualification there is, again, since I'm making it for people that I train, there may be some things, that might be missing that you use, but it's just not something that I use frequently. But I think it would catch most of them.
Okay.
So yeah, I can share that with you. And if anyone else wants that, feel free to give me an email and I'm happy to send that out. With that, it is 4 o'clock. So if you had another session, then technically this one's over, but I do have it set up for a few more minutes. So if you want to stay and you had anything else to ask, I'm happy to try to answer that.
Thank you for doing this for us.
Yes.
Sorry?
I said, thank you for doing this
Oh.
for the session.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm glad to do it. And if there's any other questions that come up, I'm happy to do like a smaller one for your area if you ever are interested in that too, where we could go over more specific scenarios. It's hard to come up with a banner training in a format like this because again, everyone's access is so different that you can't cover everything. Thank you all.
Thank you.